Good afternoon, Postback. Good afternoon and welcome to our panel. Today we are going to bring it all together. We are talking about delivering the best experience between MarTech and AdTech. And really that's about right customer, right time, right message, in the right location. And what we're going to talk about with our esteemed panelists are really what it's going to take to make that happen right. I'm going to start, before I introduce the panelists, I'm going to start with a quote that Joe Stanhope from Forrester wrote about, and he said basically, thoroughly understanding AdTech and MarTech convergence is critical because it drives two things. One, the economic throughput, meaning impact of tens of billions of dollars through marketing budget allocation. And number two, contextual marketing. It's about advancing the tech stack for customer-led organizations across the customer life cycle. Today we have a really great panel that covers a whole bunch of ground from the advertising side, from the agency side, and from the publisher side. I am the director of product marketing for Tune, and I've been around all three sides. I will interject when necessary to keep the balance potentially exciting and potentially contentious or good, depending on where it goes. And I've been working at places, other platforms such as Google and eBay and Performix, so I have a little bit of experience in this as well. To my left is Nathan Coyle. Nathan is the CEO of Domino. He has more than 15 years of experience in all aspects of the media business. Nathan's had a senior role at every seat in the table as well: advertiser, agent, publisher, general manager, arming him with a vast range of skills and perspectives. And prior to Domino, Nathan was with Refinery 29, where he built various new businesses, including the foundation of the video and the influencer business. To Nathan's left is Aaron Lavin. Aaron is the senior manager with Deloitte Digital and the Seattle studio lead for campaign management. Aaron is a digital marketing and campaign veteran with over 20 years of experience. His work has been centered around helping clients use digital marketing technologies to better engage with customers, including focus areas such as campaign management, digital and content strategy, personalization, and marketing automation. And to Aaron's left is Jacob Kramer. Jacob Kramer is the Senior Product Growth Manager at MoPub, which is a Twitter company. Jacob works as a programmatic evangelist responsible for commercializing MoPub's high-impact formats, including video, native, and rich media, with a special focus on the mobile experience. So before we dive into some of the details of AdTech and MarTech, I think it'd be great to sort of personalize this a little bit. And we've had almost 2 days of discussions about great marketing and advertising experiences, including a memorable moment for me was hearing about Uber's ice cream, which I thought was a particularly poignant moment where you can imagine an Uber driver sending you an ice cream cone or driving an ice cream cone to you. And that's a great example. And we're also talking about examples that start all the way back from advertising and attribution. I asked the panel shortly before we got on stage what their most personal experience of convergence was. So Nathan, why don't we start with you and just give us your own great example of seamless marketing and advertising.
Oh God, there's so many. I think that just the ability to go and take the content that I'm consuming across devices is, for me as a consumer, the most important thing, especially somebody who travels a lot, and being able to consume what I want, where I want, when I want it. That is when the Wi-Fi on the airplane works, which yesterday it did not. Yeah, I mean, as far as convergence, for me, that's a huge, huge piece, and it's real now.
Any particular commercials, ads, experiences that come to mind in particular?
Oh God, there's so many. I mean, in terms of a programming front, it's, Netflix. And, the awards programs certainly support that.
Got it. Great.
Yeah.
Great. How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I actually, I would say that I disagree a little bit in terms that there are so many, because I think that there are a lot of things that just don't work throughout the entire cycle. I mean, the experience for me that I think is a good marketing experience is a company called Roadrunner Sports, and so they really use the information that not only I've given them, but inferred information like how long I've been running or how long it's been since I purchased a product to inform me, hey, there's a new product coming out. And so I've had a lot of really good experiences that way. And they take that all the way through from that purchase of a shoe that I've used before to the customer service in terms of how they deliver it to you. So I think that's a good one.
So the experience going outside of the digital world onto essentially the physical
Customer
world
support, delivery, yeah.
Got it. How about you, Jacob?
So I work at MoPub. We're a Twitter company. We were acquired back in 2013. And so we service about 45,000 apps, 180 demand-side platforms. That said, I'll put that on pause for a second and I'll point to a Twitter example. So really popular tequila company was getting ready to ramp up for the summer, and Twitter had just released our chatbot functionality. So they promoted a tweet that kind of had this like animated video, sort of two little animated bartenders. And the first question is kind of interactive. You hit the button, is sweet or savory? And so after you hit sweet or savory, it kind of kicks you into a direct response situation, keeps asking you questions to kind of craft the perfect summer drink based on the tequila. And I loved it because there was a video functionality, there was an interactive functionality, and then it was actually helpful. Like I gained from that experience. And I think Netflix creatives and others certainly have that. This particular implementation, like it's not just about finding the right user with the right message at the right time, but the canvas matters. And in this case, the canvas was a brand new format that we had released. And I think that that's a theme that we'll see is what is the canvas that you're using to hit and enhance those other three things that you had mentioned.
Canvas, great example. Either of you want to talk about sort of the secret sauce of a great experience? What you'd say is the one thing that makes it?
I mean, I think you hit on an important point, which is about value and delivering value back to the consumer. And so I think we have such sophisticated audiences today, particularly with the millennial audience, and they understand that they're being messaged to, and they expect it, and they know what the trade-off is to consume great content and to have experiences. But giving something back as part of that marketing program, I think, is a great piece, and that's what the audience is looking for.
Makes sense. How about you, Aaron?
I mean, using data in a smart way. Right? I mean, you're getting a lot of information through that experience, or the example I used, Roadrunner Sports, really all the information that they have, and then using it in a smart way, not just a way where you're like, oh, well, you missed the boat on that, and I'm not interested. So.
Well, interestingly enough, I reached out to my Facebook community right before this and asked for lots and lots of examples of great seamless experiences, and I got one response. So if that's any indication of where we are in the seamless experience, perhaps it's good guidance for me. And I actually sort of makes me think, well, what do you guys think? Like how close are we? If we take sort of the left-hand side of the spectrum, we call it like a siloed universe, and we take the right-hand side of the spectrum and call it a perfect union. Where do we sit today from your opinions? We'll go backwards this time. We'll go Jacob.
I'll start by saying if you're friends with Brian and you didn't comment with a suggestion, shame on you. I think it's like when we talk about the convergence, as most panels have said, it's about finding your users. Like you need to find them using data, you need to find them using media, you need to find them using interest targeting. I think we need to change the narrative a little bit from finding your users to meeting them where they are. What apps or environments are they in? And how are you coming up with an experience where you're meeting them where they are? You're not adding an extra banner onto a page that they're just going to zoom by. We're not adding an experience into something that it takes away from a core readership. We're looking to add on to that, right? So all of the pieces of the puzzle have to be less about finding users and more about meeting them, adding to their experience. And so if that takes a really robust CRM combined with great creative, with your media buying agency, making sure that your media buyer is transacting on the right properties and willing to test a little bit so that you can meet rather than find, I think that's a start, and we're a ways away from that in my perspective.
So we're in the siloed universe from your perspective?
I think, you had asked sort of about a spectrum. I want to say we're definitely less than 50% of a beautiful universe, right? Maybe 25% of our way to a beautiful universe. And that's talking only about like a network buying model or a walled garden buying model. When we talk about programmatic as a way to scale up something that works, putting all those pieces together gets even trickier, and that's why I want to lean towards the siloed universe. Okay,
Aaron, what do you think?
First of all, I am friends with Brian on Facebook, and he usually gets more responses than one on his posts. I think that aspirationally, a lot of the players in the market in terms of advertising technology and marketing technology, aspirationally, they have great story, great capabilities, and lots of ways to make that experience happen. But I would agree. I just think that in terms of it actually being put in place and executed in the market, it's not there. And there are, sort of what I would call moments of marketing brilliance happening, but it's the exception and not the rule.
Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, I just think the power, one thing to keep in mind is the power of brands, and that's what excites me from a publishing perspective. So I was at Refinery 29 for many years, which is a brand that people are very passionate about. We have an extremely engaged user. Same thing with Domino. We have a really passionate fan base, and so it allows us to really connect with our consumer and service her, delivering relevant news, information, things she cares about, and excites the advertisers as well. We're completely a direct sale model. Not programmatic, and advertisers are excited about being in business with us because of the power of the brand.
So the brand meeting the customer, this is what it's going to take to push us closer to the perfect union, is what you guys are saying, and being able to bring those capabilities together. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the obstacles, because I think I think it sounds like from this panel, it sounds like we're leaning sort of left of closer to the siloed side, which I think is a fair characterization, given the fact that we're early in our infancy in sort of bringing the world together through mobile, et cetera. But I want to bring back to what I've read some really interesting stuff from the Forrester team, and they laid out an article which gave 5 dimensions of things to reconcile. I'll just kind of throw them at you and see. And Aaron, we're going to start with you, so I'm
ready.
You ready? There are five dimensions. Tell me which one you think is the biggest one in holding us back. One around incentives or pricing between the marketers and the ad tech teams. 2, organizational challenges between the buyers and the users. 3, integration challenges between MarTech and the data. And then 4th, data management and privacy challenges between first and third-party data. Go for it.
I thought you said there were 5.
Did I say 5?
Yeah, man, anyway,
Who's counting?
I actually stopped when I was going to pick the one. I stopped listening when I was going to pick the one that you said second. So organizationally, I think what we often see with our clients is that siloed in the sense of their organization between the product teams, the technology, and the marketers and the people who are out building the content and the experiences for the customers. And so I think thinking about, as a company, thinking about how you fund the experiences that you want your customers to have, and not just creating a wall between the budgets of, say, the CMO and the CIO, and really thinking about what it is the customer needs and what experience you want to provide to the customer, and I think that will help move it along.
Organizational.
Yeah.
Nathan, how about you?
I mean, so much of what we do is service-oriented, about DIY, how to everything from decorate a room in your house to throw the perfect cocktail party to planning a wedding, and so we bring, to your point about breaking down the walls. I mean, we do advertiser programs where a paint company will sponsor a furniture hack that then is created, sold by our ad sales team, created by the editorial team, shot by the video team, and then with app components that help to bring it to life on the mobile experience through our tech team. So it takes a village, and having everybody working together to create content that then is generating revenue through an advertiser and delighting and educating and helping the audience and the consumer.
Organizational then as well?
Yes.
2 organizationals. All right, Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll tee it up for a third.
Really?
Yeah, I think organizationally, the challenge is, and I think organization encompasses everything else, right? All the other items that you mentioned, whether it's alignment or technical integration, it's a result of good organization from a commercial standpoint. I think a perspective that you guys kind of touched on was, like, what is from a publisher's perspective, what are they gaining? And I know it's an advertising-focused crowd that we have, and it's a marketer-focused event. But without the ability to serve an ad from a publisher, like, where do we sit? And I think part of that is a mantra that I've recently been working on is, it's a publisher's world, we're just living in it. So if it's a publisher's world, we access every ad that we serve through publishers. We're in service to the publisher, and we can be in service to the publisher by making sure that publishers are happy. What do happy publishers mean? It means they're willing to test new things. It means that money is flowing. It means they're willing to maybe take advertisers or accept a level of risk that when money wasn't flowing, they weren't willing to do. And so I think some of the holdups organizationally from an advertiser perspective is there's different blockers to budgets flowing, and when those budgets don't flow, publishers don't want to add more ad formats. They don't want to increase the number of users that you can access. Like they're a little bit frozen or a little bit colder. And so I think up the pipeline of ad dollars, like sure, it's a publisher's world, we're living in it, but it's the advertiser's job to make that virtuous cycle, be a little bit more willing to test and experiment. And with that, you'll find new pockets of users because publishers want to open up more inventory. And so I think from end to end of that process, we've got to think about how can we hit our goals as advertisers, but that means in some small way, pleasing publishers so that they want to participate more.
So the incentive side in particular is you're talking about incentives to get testing budget, not incentives between sort of the two sides of the house where you've got the SaaS model and you've got a performance model. You're talking specifically about getting budget for testing.
Sure, I mean, there's a number of ways that you could do it, right? Incentives is one. Educating and informing both advertising and publisher side of the house that this is something new. I'll use native as an example. So how many have run native ads? Ever. Have you ever run a native ad? It's a good chunk. Native has been, particularly in-app on MoPub from our perspective, a 3-year-long process, right? And if you can guess which side was harder to commercialize, getting publishers to adopt the ad format or getting advertisers to spend on it. I mean, it's a cat and mouse game in that scenario. So I think the challenge is publishers will continue to open up more inventory if the advertising dollars are flowing through. So whether that's via incentives, whether that's showing value in a new way that we haven't before, like organizationally, somebody has to be making those decisions. And I think that's a blocker as I see it, because it takes two sides of a house to serve an ad, right? And if we're thinking only about what benefits advertisers, you're limiting scale from those people that might see your ad in some publisher that you don't have access to, because you haven't done that whole cycle in a virtuous way.
Any thoughts?
That's a powerful statement. I don't know if this is the right crowd for it.
we get caught a little bit around the different options that are out there, and the different, whether it be a publisher releasing something or an advertiser thinking about how they might use it. We get caught with, okay, well, what's the best way for us to use this? Because you're using, for us, we're in some ways using our clients' budgets. And so, having ways where we can see, okay, this is the best practice, this is how it's working, and maybe a little more sharing of that would help us test things and move things along.
Sure. I think the main pushback that we hear is we'll be ready to test when there's more scale. So if we're ready to test when there's more scale, whose fault? Like where does the responsibility lie? Right? You want to do right by your client. Your client only wants more scale. I think that's the tough place that we're in now.
Well, I would respond to that and to the scale piece, and back to what you said about native. I mean, we do just about every program that we do with advertisers is predicated upon a native component, and less so now with Refinery 29, but certainly with Domino, it's a more of a niche audience, but a very valuable audience, affluent, educated, et cetera, to the right set of advertisers. And so the way that we deliver that value is through creating and telling stories that brings the advertiser and their message to life.
Sure.
I want to push on one more just because I think this is a really rich topic. Data management and privacy, first party, third party. Is there a big conflict? How do we bring those worlds together? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Anybody?
Yeah, I think luckily, so from my perspective, from a programmatic space, there's all sorts of DMPs that have an offering and have gathered data over time. I think a good programmatic offering is able to surface and add those into our bid stream as it becomes available. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can think about charging for or arranging those types of conversations. And I think there's also a question of who owns that data. Is it the publisher that owns their first-party data and they're kind of letting the advertiser borrow it? Is it the advertiser's first-party data and they want to decide on their end? How does an exchange have a role, right? Whether it's MoPub or AdX or Rubicon or Pubmatic, who gets to kind of have a stake in that data? It's around. I think we can do better in unifying what it looks like so that all advertisers can transact on the same type of data without having to say, this exchange categorizes age as, this code, but my other exchange over here does it. Like those add friction. And I think if we could get more unified, that also means unifying publishers, right? Asking on the publisher side of the house or the agency side of the house, are you okay with this taxonomy, or do you really prefer to do it your own way because you want to be more protective?
Yeah, I mean, we own, as a publisher, we own all of our data, but we work closely with the advertiser and their agency. when we're exploiting that data, do it in the way that best services their interest, but it's all ours, which is important.
I just think it's got to be used in a smart way. I mean, the example I used earlier is, if I'm getting advertised or if I'm getting a marketing touch point about a product, but like Roadrunner Sports, they miss half the time because I haven't been running for a little while, but they assume because over a period of time I should be looking for a new shoe. But if they had the right data and use it in a little smarter way, and that's why I would say, my perspective is I want to not necessarily own all the data, but I want to be able to look at it in a more customized way that's unique to my customer, my experience, and my client.
Yeah, I also wonder, can that data be used just on a specific format, right? Maybe all the data that you have is really meant for a native implementation or a banner implementation. Let's say you want to start buying video. Can you rechannel that same data to run on video placements too? It should be that way. I don't know if the systems can integrate right now to work as seamlessly as that.
It is interesting to hear you guys talk about the organizational piece, because it seems like the easiest piece to solve, right? It's like get the teams together to start working together, open up the budgets, and things will happen. That's, I think, actually really good news. It just is really incumbent upon companies to start centering their businesses around the customer. So that was encouraging, and I did not know your answers beforehand, so that's super interesting that we aligned on that. Tell me a little bit, and I'm going to come back to your point about data moving up the channel, but I actually want to cover something around verticals. Which verticals these days are really good at seamless marketing? Are there some that are pulling ahead and some that are lagging? I'm just kind of curious. Nathan, maybe we could start with you. Any specific thoughts?
Well, to your point, I think in the sports area, there's a lot of really interesting things happening. Certainly in fashion and beauty, which is where I was at previously. In fashion and beauty, it's something that people are so passionate about, as with sports, frankly, that having those passions is a lot that you can play into and speak to and get the audience and the consumer excited.
John?
Yeah. I think, when you own the transaction or the direct customer relationship, the retail vertical, they're going to be, and we see them as being, some of the leaders in the space in terms of these marketing experiences. The ones that are a little less savvy and ones that, we see a lot of opportunity are folks in like financial services, insurance, and I think those are really opportunities around, B2B marketing and sort of how you can create an experience to help your sales teams and customer support teams, really move the business forward. Those are some good opportunities.
How about you, Jacob?
It may be preaching to the choir a little bit, but I'd suggest gaming has actually done a really good job, particularly on mobile in-app, right, for a bunch of reasons. One, they've gotten really good at calculating ROI for every dollar they spend. Two, generally not afraid to test new formats. If they think there's a possibility that return on spend is good, they'll try something, be it native, rewarded or opt-in video. Like, they don't have the same, I think, sort of fear that if we spend on something, we won't necessarily know what the outcome is. And because they've gotten good at those two things, exploring and exploiting, there's something that brands, and be it fashion or banking, can learn about that method of being really rigorous and assigning test budgets, finding success, and then passing that on to other campaigns.
But you nailed it. They can see directly the outcome, which is, I think, where some of the ones that have lagged behind in terms of adopting and using some of the technology and potential options are just that direct outcome isn't quite there.
Sure, and they have the upper hand in that regard.
Yeah.
And gaming's like the motion picture industry in the sense that the marketing is content and content is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And call me biased, but it seems that the leaders in this sort of movement are driven by mobile at the center, and they're people-focused and they're performance-based. So if I think about some of the things that Peter's been saying, even at this conference, it feels like those are the ones that are sort of leading the path for getting the convergence to happen the quickest.
Sure, I think there's lessons that can be learned, no matter the vertical. I think it's tempting for an agency to say, well, we can't prove the value of this ad format, therefore we want to shy away from it. But a gaming company wouldn't have that mentality. And so I think there's breaking down at a bunch of different levels, back to organizational. Who's afraid of running on this format, and what's driving that? Like, what's the motivation? Is it being ashamed that this won't work out the way that we hoped? Is there less of an optimization mindset. I think those are the types of things that as advertising and attribution get more towards brands, things to keep in mind.
We have just a few minutes left. I want to hit one super, you had actually started to talk a little about something I think that's important to talk about is, so we have a lot of people in the audience that are from the app world, and we all know, or many of us know that those are where you find some of your most valuable customers. The question is, how do you get that data? Like, what's holding us back now? And or where are we in terms of getting that data out to the rest of the organization, the advertising, et cetera? I'm just kind of curious your points of view on that.
I mean, I just think that the challenge that we see in that scenario you just articulated is that it's not that the data is not there, it's not that there isn't the ability to understand how somebody's using the app, what their actions are, the engagement, and all the demographic information that you get. It's then how do I apply that going forward? And I think that's where things could be either more directive from either
Mm-hmm.
technology or an advertiser perspective, or could be just easier for us, for our clients.
I mean, for us, our app audience is a tiny portion of the overall audience, but it's that super hyper user, and so we use it as a laboratory to really understand her and learn more about her, and it's fantastic because it's literally that addicted to crack audience for us that is so important to understand those insights.
Yeah, I think we talk about good advertising, and this is a lesson from the Twitter side, is we talk about stopping power. A user is scrolling through their feed, they're swiping through an app, and they come across an ad that stops that swiping motion, and they're kind of taking a second to think about the creative. And it's not just about the creative, it's about the data that comes into the pipeline of why do we choose to serve the ad to this person? What is it about the way that we think about this user in this environment that contributes to an experience of stopping power? So I think we've had some other panels talking about the importance of good creative. We can't discount data and marrying those two things up together to get to that sort of stopping power moment where a user doesn't want to hit the X right away, right? They want to see content that speaks to them, and it speaks to them because we know about the data, whether it comes from first party or otherwise, that it's the perfect union.
Now I know what I'm going to ask the creative directors for. Stopping power. That's what we
Stopping
need.
power, yeah.
That's what we need.
This is your opportunity. Final words, parting words. Maybe we just go around. Sort of, what's your most poignant point about sort of seamless marketing today? Nathan, why don't you take it away?
It goes back to where we almost started with the example you spoke about with the tequila brand. Is in the end you're actually getting recipes and how to create that great cocktail for your friends when they're coming over on a weekend. It's giving something back. In marketing and advertising programs. For us that teaches you how to take a IKEA cabinet that maybe a lot of your friends have, but using spray paint and other tools to make it special and make it your own. So really giving something to that audience in the context of marketing a consumer product.
Give it back. Aaron?
I think I'll just go back to that. You have to focus on the value for the end customer and think about how you can organize your testing, your investments, really just your focus on that experience and leverage the technology as you can today, and you'll build a pathway for the future.
Jacob, final
I'll
words?
agree with these guys, and I'll say, let's make sure we're not just finding users, but we're meeting them where they are with all of this as the context, and I think we'll be set.
Very good. Well, thank you all very much for joining and participating
you.
in the panel, and thank you all for being such a great audience.
All right.
Thank you.